there's the option of accepting the Croke Park Agreement as the best strategy to protect where we're at and to move on. Now, I'm not going to go through the detailed content of the agreement, and Brendan outlined that very well and very fairly this evening. But I'm going to do that later in response to debate and questions as necessary. But I just want to say that I've given out a yellow sheet there, but it very much mirrors, it's just a factual sheet, and like Brendan did, it goes through the sections of the agreement. And all I want to say about the agreement in general terms is that there are some assurances there for public service workers at various stages of career and for our members. I wouldn't describe them as guarantees. I would not go so far as to say that. But there are certainly assurances there. A bit better than promises, a little bit below guarantees. And they're on issues like no further pay cuts until 2014. They're on issues like the protection of the teacher's incremental scale as part of that. Now that is a key. I think, when people ask the question, well, who will do best out of this agreement if it's passed and if it's honoured? And there are those caveats. Teachers on the incremental scale will continue to make real gains in purchasing power, because the average increment on the incremental scale is worth something over 3%, about 3.5%. And at a time of negative or zero inflation, that's a real purchasing gain. People who are stuck on top of the incremental scale, I'm afraid, don't make those gains in that context. But I really do think that's important to know for our younger members and teachers who are still progressing along the scale. Second, and thirdly, apart from the no further pay cuts, protecting the position of younger teachers near retirement, as Brendan outlined, their pre-cut salaries will be the basis of their pensions for anybody who retires up to the end of 2011 under this agreement. And that's really important in principle, because that says that the pre-cut salary is the real headline salary, and that's there for those people. In relation to pensions, there is the opportunity to negotiate on pensions. That's what there is. The government has damaged our pensions already. 1995 when the PRSI changed, 2004 for new entrants. Last year in terms of the pensions levy. Those were unilateral. Those were unilateral attacks on our pensions. Consultation is not satisfactory on its own, but I believe it's better to have an opportunity to put our point of view and to put it across. And then there's the question of a pay review annually every year starting in spring 2011. Now there's a price to pay. If those assurances, which might not in normal times seem very much, at a time like this they may prove very valuable. And I believe they will as the months and years go on ahead. But there's a price to pay. And the question we have to ask ourselves is, are we willing to pay the price for those? And the price is really in two issues. One is the hour a week. And it's there, and we can discuss later how that might imply. But we know what it is. I mean, it's measurable. The quantum is known. It's an hour a week. The other price to pay, the quantum of which is not known, and let's not kid ourselves on it, is a review of the teacher's contract. But a review implies discussions and consultation. And Brendan read out for you, or put up on the screen for you, the terms of that review, to identify and remove any impediments to the provision of efficient and effective teaching to students in all sectors. Well, I want to remove any impediments to effective and efficient teaching in all sectors, and I'm sure so do INTO members in general want to remove, and we've got plenty to say about that in terms of the review of contract. And I want to say more to you about the review of contract. The question for us really is whether we're willing to pay the price for the degree of protection that is there in the agreement. And as I say, it is a question of strategy. Trust is a big issue here. And trust comes up in relation to the final clause of the agreement, and trust comes up in general terms about dealing with this government. But all I'd say about trust is two things. First of all, into the agreement was put an implementation body, which was approved by the Labour Relations Commission, was agreed at the talks, and has equal representation from the trade union side and from the government side, to be chaired by an independent third party. And that's the implementation body to oversee the fairness and the running through the implementation of the agreement. And that's an important issue. So it's not just left to the government to see whether they have a whim to honour the agreement or not. And the second thing I'd say about trust is that if we don't trust the government, and I wouldn't blame anybody for not trusting the government given what has happened, but if we don't trust the government, why would we then give them a totally free hand by throwing out whatever degree of assurance and protection that there may be in the Croke Park Agreement? It seems to me that the argument of trust may weigh on the side of trying to put some kind of shackles on controls on government rather than giving them the free hand. Now, suppose we're wrong on either side. Suppose the side that Pat Crowe is going to argue in a minute is wrong, and we're like if we vote no, it seems to me the downside of that is the agreement is gone. The government has unlimited powers, or powers limited only by our effectiveness in running a strong campaign and getting broad support in that campaign to take on the government. It seems to me otherwise, unless we fight that, they have a free hand. Suppose the side that the executive is arguing is wrong. Suppose the agreement is not honoured by government. Well, our view in those circumstances is the deal is over. If the government breaks the deal, that's the end of the deal, and the commitments in its end, and there really aren't irrevocable commitments there, in my view, that we can't walk away from, that we can't drop and move on from. Thanks, Gary. So I'll finish then by just re-emphasising that this is a judgment call. That it's a judgment call made by the CEC, who took seriously, 2 days after the agreement was negotiated, their position of leadership, and considered the pros and cons of this agreement, and believed that it was the best available protection for teachers. But at the end of the day, it's your choice in the ballot to vote yes or no on this. And I fully endorse what Brendan said in terms of people reading the terms of the agreement. It's not very long, and urging colleagues to participate in the ballot, and the ballot papers will be out next week. So what I'm about tonight is not about trying to sell something to you, but about putting the issues on the table to you for your consideration. And one of the concerns I have about this agreement, if it goes down, is that in 8 months' time, just after the budget, that I will meet young members of INTO who've taken on commitments and who are in serious financial difficulty. And they will say, well, what did you do about it? What did you try to do about it? And what we tried to do about it was to gain protection and assurance and to make sure that those people wouldn't suffer pay cuts. Because the other option, we need to ask ourselves, what is the other option, and where are we going with that? And it boils down to one question, I think, really, and I finish on this. Does any potential achievable objective, any improvement that we can obtain, through way of industrial action or through way of any type of campaigning action, outside the agreement, does any potential improvement like that justify risking and walking away from the commitments, the assurances that are in this agreement? And that's the key question in debate. So thank you very much. I'll be glad to respond to questions and to take part in debate later, but we'll be in the